Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be painting over another one of my pen sketches. This time it's a scene from the Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm not really sure which one it is. I haven't watched any of the movies in a while, but I really do love this scene in particular. I saw this on Pinterest and it will be linked in the description with the other reference photos in my videos, but I just had to draw it. Full disclosure, I've tried to draw this 2 or 3 times now and it hasn't worked out, so we're starting with an imperfect sketch, but since I am working with gouache and it's an opaque medium, I am sort of not as bothered by it. I'm gonna try and see if I can fix the proportions while I do the painting. So we're gonna be using traditional Holbein gouache again. I actually swatched out all of my colors to try and see which ones I have, because since buying those new 2 sets, I actually have more than I thought, so there's a lot more colors to choose from today, and so I was really excited to paint this time. I have always wanted to draw this scene because I feel like it just looks so powerful. I don't even remember much of the context about it in the actual movie, but I do love how regal she looks and how strong she's standing, even though she has her hands bound and all that. So I really wanted to draw this, and I was really excited to paint over a sketch that I didn't think was perfect, and so I could sort of fix it with the gouache. So I think with a lot of the pastel colors I had, it was easier for me now to paint her face, because I have those very soft pink pastels and lots of different yellows that I could pair it with. And I also have different whites to sort of lighten it up. So actually the colors in this piece I wasn't having any troubles with. While I was painting it, I was listening to a podcast. And so because I think everything went relatively smoothly for a video like this, I want to talk about sort of losing your drive to paint. So even though this one turned out well and it went smoothly for me, I actually had a few drawings and paintings before this that I started, and I couldn't finish them for different reasons. So the first painting was going to be a bigger one that I wanted to do in lots of different layers with gouache, so that one is going to take a lot more time anyway. Why I stopped that one was actually because I ran out of white. So I kept on saying this before and I completely changed my mind about it, and I was also adamant about it, so I sort of just want to take back what I said before about the kind of white paint that you have not really mattering that much, because I've always said that they were interchangeable just because I couldn't really tell the difference between the two, especially zinc white and permanent white, which is what I used, which is what came with the first set that I had. I always thought they were interchangeable because I bought multiple tubes of both, and I thought that I was opening a different kind of white every time. So I've opened 2 white tubes in the past and I thought I was opening a different one every time, but I was actually just using permanent white both times. So I wasn't paying attention to the names, and now I'm kicking myself because while I was doing that big painting, it was immediately apparent to me that zinc white was not the same as permanent white. It was just so transparent, and it's sort of hard to explain how gouache could be that transparent. I don't know that I've noticed it with any other colors. It just feels like I wasn't covering much of the layers underneath, and with a painting like that where I was banking on the gouache being opaque so I could build up the depths in the painting through the layers that I was putting on, it really was apparent that zinc white wasn't gonna cut it. So I had to look for sort of a sketch that I could paint over so I could have a video out in time. So I found this one, and at first I was just using the white because I thought that since I'm just covering sort of one layer of ink, it's not gonna matter that much. But I did actually find one white in my desk, and it's the white that I keep on talking bad about. It's the white from the Talon squash, and I just found it and I thought I was just gonna use it because the zinc white was almost not usable. It's great when you're mixing it with different colors to sort of lighten them up, but it doesn't have that much covering power, so it was gonna hurt me on this painting that I have, but it's not gonna hurt me as much as the other painting where I was just adding light layers on top of dark ones. So I thought it wasn't gonna matter that much for this one, but I did find that Talon squash and I'm so happy for it. I don't really know what kind of white it is because it just says white in the tube, and I almost want to take back all of the things that I said about the Talon squash before. But looking back at my mixing palette, I think it still stands that it doesn't reactivate as well as the other gouache. It was great to use fresh out of the tube, and it covered, I actually think it's one of my most opaque gouache paints. But it doesn't reactivate as well as my Holbein gouache, and so it wasn't really a pleasant experience still to use it after it's dry. So I don't want to take back all of the things I said about the Talon squash, but it is a great white because it's the only color that I had. It's a great white by itself, and I feel like I shouldn't have been discounting it as gouache paint in general. So thank you to my Talon squash for saving this video on this painting. I don't think I would have been able to upload this if it wasn't for that one, if it wasn't for that white. So going back to this painting, one of the things that really visually sort of grabbed me was the color of her dress. And so I was really happy to finally use the violet in my original Holbein set. I had always thought that it was too sort of red as a purple, and I've always liked purple that leans closer to blue. So for this one, it worked extremely well for her dress, and for the darker parts of it, I would add more of, I think it was the Prussian blue and a little bit of just my jet black that I have. I really think those colors worked well together, and I was surprisingly very happy with the colors that I had for the dress. And I also just in this video really like watching it sort of completely covering up the very rough sketch underneath. So I love the colors of the dress. I also just love that it's on some cases a little bit more brown than red, and on other areas I would add in just the punch of purple. And it was just so fun to paint her dress. I think actually what I had the most trouble with was her hair. I didn't want it to be too light, but I also didn't want it to just look like it's fully in shadow. There's a lot of green and yellow tones to her hair that I wanted to capture without making it too saturated and just unnatural. So it was a bit of a challenge to actually get the colors of her hair right. I think that I expected to have trouble with the colors of the dress and not the hair. It's deceptively simple, but it actually took a bit of a while for me to get the exact colors of her hair right. Another thing that I sort of hit a bit of a snag with was getting the color of the ropes right. I think I was struggling with adjusting either the values or the hues so I could get it to stand out in the image, and especially it being so much lower in the photo, I wanted to add more attention to it because I didn't want it to lose sort of its importance in the storyline. I think I did get it eventually. I think I just made it more graphic than the rest of the painting with darker outlines later on. But another thing that I was sort of on the fence about was whether I would paint the person in the background. Initially, I thought it was going to be a cool idea to just paint her and then have the rest of the background be in ballpoint pens. But then I couldn't get the I couldn't get the shape of her head right without having something that goes around it, because of the colors of her hair. It's just, they have to be light, and so I have to have something darker that surrounds it for the shape of it to look okay. And so I couldn't paint that without painting the person. So what I finally did was just paint the person in the background, but keep it very loose so that I will keep the details in the foreground. And also, in deciding to paint the colors in the background, I went ahead and did more of the details in the dress and just her in general, because I really wanted to separate those two more. I also wanted to make sure that the colors in the background are more neutral, and that I either keep them very light gray or just neutral black. So after I just put in those very loose layers, I also added in more of those punches of colors to her dress, just strategically, just on some of where the folds are, not really glazing over the whole thing with something bright. I just wanted there to be more pops of color in the dress so that she stands out more in the page. So now that I've laid down all of the elements in the photo and just get the painting to be where I need it to be before adding in the final details, I was so excited to actually put those in, because I sort of wanted to try out my metallic gold that came with my autumn set of the Irdori gouache, I think. So I was really excited to try it, and before I could do that, I had to put in just these very sort of yellowish gray on the accents of her dress. I couldn't just put in the antique gold straight on without anything underneath, so I had to put those in. But I think this was the most exciting part of the painting. I think just seeing those light colors in the lining just sort of gives you a more clearer idea of the structure of the dress. So it was really fun to do that. And also, I just really like finally using a smaller brush when I'm doing a painting like this, because it feels like sort of seeing the end of the tunnel. And also, it's just really fun process, I think, even though a lot of the things I didn't plan out in advance. I feel like in the end I ended up with a painting that I would have been happy with if I had just had this idea before I started. And also, before I could put in the gold accents, I had to just finish out the rest of the details in her hair. I just wanted some of those strands to be lighter now that I've put in the background around it. I just really needed to flesh out some of these details before I can really start with the gold accents. So when it finally came down to it, I decided to just use it straight out of the tube, because when I initially did my swatches, I tried to water it down and it didn't look good. So I'm using it straight out of the tube now, and I just put it on, I think, the necklace, on some parts of it, not the whole thing. In the footage, I don't think you can see that much of the metallic accents, and it's so sad because it is, because it just looks like it's darker. But I think it has more to do with this being antique gold than the regular metallic gold you see. So it's a bit darker, and I sort of prefer it, but I really don't think it looks as good on camera. But you guys would have to trust me that it looks really good in person. And when I went back to the rest of the gold accents on the dress, I did the same thing where I'm not just fully filling out the lines. I would just put the gold in where I think that they should be shining. I was being a little bit more careful with where I put this dress. I don't want to overdo it, and I don't want it to just fully overtake the whole painting. I think this may be the first time that I'm using metallic gouache other than in my swatches, so it was really nice and super fun for me to do. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed painting it. And yeah, that will be it for this one. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me, and I will be seeing you guys again soon.